Good morning and welcome to another edition of The Aftermath on Tab Radio Racing and Sport. This is where we cover off on the highlights and lowlights of racing and sport over the past 24 hours. If you missed any of the action on Saturday, we will have every angle covered. Keep the dial locked on Tab Radio Racing and Sport for another action-packed edition of The Aftermath.
Yes, welcome along to the Sunday Aftermath, a little bit of a different look aftermath this morning. I'm Rylie Morgan. I'll be joining you as our usual man. March is a little bit under the weather at the moment, and I'm joined by Brad Hardy this morning. Brad, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Rylie. Good morning, Michael. Good to be with you. Poor old Marty feeling a little bit blue this morning. I think a few of the punters might be feeling a bit blue too. Looking forward to talking to Ralphy.
Yes.
Jimmy Starr yesterday. That was an interesting ride.
Oh, I think it was. That's the main talking point of the racing there at Flemington yesterday. That's for sure and certain. And I'm sure it's going to create a fair bit of debate, Brad, among punters, form analysts, people in racing. But I guess the debate would come down to, on a horse at that sort of price, $1.24, would you ease back in the field from that gate with that what happened early in the race, or do you just take bad luck out of the occasion and ride the horse like the best horse?
Oh, well, I must admit, Rylie, I was working yesterday on my other position, and I was watching, and I kept looking at the screen, and where is it? I'm trying to pick it, because you know the colours, and I'm not looking at the front, because I'm thinking, it's not going to be at the front, it's going to be midfield or back, and I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. And then I looked at the bottom of the screen, the graphic, and then all of a sudden it's in front. I've gone, okay, that's different. And, we know what happened with the rest. It was almost like Dandy Andy versus Bo Rowe. All those years ago, for your time, young man. But a lot of our listeners will remember that.
Bradley,
they'll remember that. Australia Cup, way back then.
Choice words as well there after the race yesterday.
Well, yeah, so did a lot of the punters, I would have thought. So, Kieran, I get that. We do, we forgive and forget, but, it does hurt. But I think probably, it's a wise man once said, don't bet odds on, don't walk upstairs. But, but the bottom line is, I think a lot of people would have had it, in their multi somewhere. There's Sunday Saviour, which might have been the Saturday Saviour. Imperatives was fantastic. There was a couple up in Sydney who got the money, who should have got the money. So, it can happen. Can happen, mate.
And all of these, obviously, Brad, the intra-clubs and scratch matches are really starting to kick off now. It's all starting to get very exciting, isn't it, leading into season 2024?
Oh, yes, it's champagne football at the moment, Rylie, I can tell you that. They're all up and firing, and, there's been a few, we'll talk about it later, but there's a lot of blokes being tried in different positions, but it's intra-club, just remember that, intra-club, so between themselves, so, and I think they change it up. I think West Coast changed theirs up a little bit yesterday where they had the forwards on the back, so to speak, eventually. You just got to try these things. So it's hard to take, it's good match conditioning, but it's a little bit hard to gauge exactly what's working and what's not.
Big first hour on the show coming up. We've got Simon Hill joining us very shortly. Jason Sharp, the trainer of Morton, who was one of the first greyhounds to get a slot in the Sandgroper in Tab Touch's slot. That was announced a little bit earlier this week, and Chris O'Nelson and Racetrack Ralphy will be joining us in the latter half of the hour as well. But before we get to our first ad break, we do need to do this.
After a huge weekend of racing and sport, we can all do with a Sunday Saviour to round out the punting weekend in winning style. The Tab Touch Sunday Saviour is here to sweeten your Sunday on the punt. It's over to the boys to provide this week's edition of Tab Touch Sunday Saviour.
0427 789 571 for all those that are keen to get involved in the Sunday Saviour. We actually had a winner there, a 4-leg multi last week. Bradley Ryan was the winner there. CR4 placed at $1.32, CR2 the win at $2, CR3 the win at $1.65, and CR8 the place at $1.36 for $5.92 was the winner there last week. And Chris from Como actually was another winner, a 3-legger for $11.88, but he's ineligible as he did win last week. So unlucky Chris.
He's on form.
He's in form, is for sure and certain. We're going to head to our first break here on the Sunday Aftermath, and we'll be catching up with Simon Hill on the other side.
Racing and sport from different angles. You are listening to The Aftermath on Tab Radio Racing and Sport.
Time to welcome in our first guest on this first hour of the Aftermath, Simon Hill. Simon, a very good morning to you.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Good, Simon. Really, really good. So just take us through a few of the games overnight. Liverpool 4-1, way too good for Brentford.
Yeah, Liverpool, of course, atop of the Premier League. Comfortable win against Brentford. Darwin Núñez putting them 1-0 up with a glorious finish in the first half. And then second half goals, Alexis McAllister, Mo Salah, who scored on his return from injury, Cody Gakpo with the fourth, Ivan Toney with Brentford's only consolation. A good day for Liverpool, not just because they got the win, but of course Manchester City slipped up as well, could only draw 1-1 at home to Chelsea. So they were temporarily 5 points clear at the top. That was later pegged back by Arsenal, but that draw for City puts Liverpool in the driving seat. They meet Manchester City at Anfield on the 10th of March, which now looms as a potential title decider, although there'll still be a few games to go after that. The only cloud for Jurgen Klopp, a few injuries on the day. Curtis Jones, Diogo Jota and Darwin Núñez all picking up injuries, but that's part of the course at this time of the season, and they're looking pretty good, Liverpool, at the top of the table.
There's a bit of an upset there last night, Simon, at Spurs, with Tottenham going down 2-1 to Wolves.
Yeah, Spurs, again, sort of authors of their own misfortune, to be honest. Joao Gomez with 2 goals for Wolves are a dangerous side, and the first goal in particular, a corner that they just don't mark up from Spurs, and that happens too often. Dejan Kulusevski got them back level within 45 seconds of the restart in the second half, but Gomez with a second after Pedro Neto is a super player. I don't think he'll be at Wolves next season. He's got great pace and very direct, a counter-attack goal, which he teed up for Joao Gomez. And Spurs, who, as I say, have made a habit of falling behind, they'd actually won their previous 2 home matches from similar situations, but they couldn't make it 3. So they drop off in the race for 4th. Aston Villa still a bit of a march on them after their win against Fulham. And again, on the 10th of March, this is going to be a big weekend with Liverpool facing Manchester City and Tottenham travelling to Aston Villa on the same day. So that match at Villa Park, again, looms as crucial in that race for 4th.
Yeah, well, Arsenal kept the pressure up on Liverpool, didn't they, with a demolition job of Burnley and a couple of draws, including your team, Man City and Chelsea, to just keep things interesting.
Yeah, I could do with it being a little bit less interesting, to be honest. I'd like City to keep winning, but let's talk about Burnley and Arsenal first. Not much of a contest, this one. Burnley are really struggling. They're 7 points adrift of safety. I think they're going to go straight back down to the Championship, which is unfortunate, but that's the reality of top-flight football. Martin Odegaard's putting Arsenal in front. It only took them 4 minutes. Bukayo Saka making it 2 before the break from the penalty spot. Then he got a second in the second half. Leandro Trossard, Kai Havertz completing the route. And Arsenal looking pretty good at the moment. That's 5 straight wins to start off the new year. And the goals, which were supposedly a problem for them, have started to flow. They beat West Ham 6-0 last week, so that's 11 goals in 2 matches. The only thing that could derail their title push, and we talk about it being between Liverpool and City, but Arsenal are certainly going to have a big say in that, is the depth of their squad, and they've got a big week coming up. They've got a trip to Porto in the Champions League, and then they've got Newcastle next week, but they're looking good at the moment. That 1-1 draw between City and Chelsea, City losing ground on Liverpool at the top, but it could have been worse. They were 1-0 down up until the 83rd minute. Raheem Sterling, former City favourite, of course, had given Chelsea the half-time lead. Rodri got at least a share of the spoils with a late goal for City, who might have had a couple of penalties towards the end, but VAR ruled against them on both occasions. But they were staring down the barrel of a first home league defeat since November 2022. So in many respects, it might even be seen as a point gained. They've got that one game in hand, which is crucial, which they play on Tuesday night against Brentford at the Etihad. So if they win that one, they can reduce the gap to Liverpool to 1 point at the top. But good performance by Chelsea. They're at Wembley next week against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup final. one of their better displays of a rather up and down season.
Simon, I'm interested to get your thoughts, and while there's still a lot of water to go under the bridge there, obviously with Klopp stepping away from Liverpool at the end of the season, I was hoping you could give our listeners just a word on perhaps some of the names that are in the driver's seat to potentially be taking over from him at the end of this season.
Well, look, I think there's one main one, and that's Xabi Alonso, who, of course, is a former player with Liverpool, won the European Cup with them. I think even Jurgen Klopp this week gave him a vote of confidence and said what a good coach or manager he was. He's doing great things with Bayer Leverkusen in the German Bundesliga. They're top of that competition at the moment, ahead of Bayern Munich, and, of course, he knows the club. I think his style of play would suit Liverpool, so I think it's very much his job to have if he wants it. If not, then it becomes a little bit more of an open race. And to be honest, I wouldn't rule out Ange Postecoglou, because Ange was a big Liverpool fan. Now, of course, he's only just starting his journey with Tottenham. Maybe you'd see it as too soon, but big jobs like that don't come up too often. And Ange was a guy who grew up with Liverpool posters on his wall in Melbourne as a kid. So, if it were to be offered to him, would he go? I don't know. But I think Xabi Alonso is probably going to be Liverpool's choice at the end of the season.
Yeah, it would certainly be food for thought there for Ange if that opportunity was put in front of him. We might move on to the remaining couple of games this weekend, Simon, with obviously Everton play Crystal Palace on Tuesday midweek, but there are two more games this evening. Sheffield, the first of those, they play Brighton. Sheffield currently $5.30 with tab touch, the draw at $4.60, and Brighton favourites there at $1.54.
Yeah, look, there might be a bit of value in that because even though Sheffield United are 7 points adrift of safety and they've conceded goals for fun at Bramall Lane this season, but they did beat Luton away last week, and Brighton haven't been too clever on the road of late. 6 matches without a win, 2 draws and 4 losses. They're struggling for goals. Their top scorer, João Pedro, is still out with a hamstring problem. Evan Ferguson is not scoring. So there might be some value in at least going for the draw, which I think was still, $4 something odd. But
$4.60, yep.
I just fancy Sheffield United might get something out of the game.
And, of course, the other one is Luton and Man United. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I mean, United are going to be favourites in this one. They're in 6th spot, 5 points behind Villa, and they need to win to keep up the pressure on the top 4. But Luton, only 1 point clear of the bottom 3. They've not beaten United in any of the last 12 meetings. It looks as though United have steadied the ship. And, of course, big talk this week. They're about to acquire the services of Dan Ashworth from Newcastle United, who's a very highly rated behind-the-scenes guy in terms of bringing players in and developing younger stars. So the takeover of Jim Ratcliffe is starting to make the sort of positive change that United wants. There seems to be a better feel around the club. And even though it's a small stadium, tight pitch, the fans get on top of you at Luton at Kenilworth Road, I think United should have enough to get the 3 points.
Simon, we might turn our attention locally, and it's been a massive week in football here in Australia, particularly for our Perth Glory over here in the West. And we actually got a chance to speak to Anthony Radic on Friday afternoon on the show, and he certainly sounded like a man who was very relieved and had just had a massive weight lifted off his shoulders with the announcement of the sale to Pelligra Group.
Yeah, I think all Perth Glory fans are relieved. It's still got to be officially ticked off by Football Australia, who do a fit and proper persons test. But I think it's great that they finally got this ownership sorted. It's been a millstone around the club's neck, and of course, it's prevented them from not only bringing players in, but has also facilitated some rather odd departures, notably selling Khalifi, who went to Melbourne Victory against Alan Stagic's wishes. That's for sure. So it's great that that's all been resolved, and now they can look forward with some certainty. I'm sure there'll be some movement in the transfer market at the end of the season, and I mean, you probably know more than me. There's some rumours that they might even get a new home in Stirling. I think they've been in discussions with the local council there. So that will be a very interesting move for Glory if that was to occur. On the pitch, they were great last night. A real topsy-turvy game against Brisbane, which they won by 3-2. Adam Taggart with another couple of goals, and again, they leaked a couple at the other end, Nikola Miliusnic and Tommy Waddingham. before Stefan Kolakowski stepped up off the bench to net the winner in the second half. So they're 5 matches unbeaten. They're still a fair way outside the top 6, 6 points adrift of the final spots. But on and off the pitch, it looks a much brighter outlook for Perth Glory, which is great.
Rylie might have the markets there for a couple of games today. We'd like to get your thoughts on that. Simon MacArthur versus Wellington, and also Central Coast Mariners up against the Wanderers.
Yeah, so that's 3 of the top 4 in action today. The headline game is probably in Campbelltown, MacArthur and Wellington Phoenix. Phoenix have surprised everybody, me included, this season. 5 points clear at the top, 7 games unbeaten. And the last time they went to Campbelltown, which was in December, which is a game I actually called, they absolutely took the Bulls apart and won by 3-0. Now, they have got a few injury concerns ahead of today. No Bojidar Kraev, Nico Pennington, Tim Payne, Sam Sutton, all out. Oscar Zavada's only just coming back from injury. He'll probably start on the bench. But they've coped with those issues all season. The problem for them is that MacArthur are also in pretty good nick. They're also 7 unbeaten, much improved under Milos Stojovski. Big wins in their last 2 against Melbourne Victory and the Wanderers. So I wouldn't be surprised if this one ends up in a draw today.
Just taking a look at
the other game is, the Mariners against the Wanderers. I forgot to update on that one. Yep. This is a big game, really, particularly for the Wanderers, because they've dropped down to 6th with Sydney's win over Adelaide yesterday. And, of course, they're going to have to do it today without their coach, Marco Redan, who's got a 3-game touchline ban for abusing a referee in the 4-3 loss to MacArthur. And they've got a few suspended players out as well, Yorick Hendricks, Tate Russell, and a couple of others. So I would imagine that the odds would slightly favour the Central Coast Mariners in that one, but not by much.
Yeah, just taking a look at those markets, Simon. MacArthur versus the Phoenix, $2.20. MacArthur $3.75 the draw, and the Phoenix at $2.90. And Central Coast versus the Wanderers. Central Coast $1.84 the draw at $3.90, and the Wanderers $3.80.
Yeah, that would be about right, I think, by my reckoning. As I say, I think the Mariners would be favourites. The only thing about the Mariners is they've had a busy week. They played in the AFC Cup zonal semi-final during the week against Phnom Penh Crown of Cambodia, which they won quite comfortably. So, 3 matches in the space of 8 days with the small squads in the A-League can sometimes test that depth. But given that they're at home, and I've mentioned that the Wanderers have got a fair few selection issues because of all those suspensions, and they're going to be without their coach on the sidelines, I think that all points to a home win.
Simon, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you on the Sunday Aftermath. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Pleasure, guys. Have a good week.
Racing and sport from different angles. You are listening to The Aftermath on Tab Radio Racing and Sport.
Yes, welcome back to the Sunday Aftermath. We're lucky enough to be joined by Jason Sharp, whose Greyhound Morton this week was announced as a slot holder for Tab Touch's representative in the 2nd edition of the Sandgroper. Jason, a very good morning to you.
Thanks, Rylie. Yeah, good morning.
How exciting is it for you, Jace? It's absolutely outstanding. It's nice we get a bit of a share of 300,000.
Yeah, it would be really good, Brad. Yeah, it was. He went good last night. He did. He didn't get knocked over. He's been getting knocked over for last few starts at the Meadows there early, and yeah, he just showed his true form.
Has it been a race that had been on the horizon for you guys and the team and this greyhound for quite some time, Jason?
Oh, yeah. You always aspire to try and win Group 1s. Like that's what you do, and you can only dream, I suppose. When you get the dog, you just hope everything goes well and the dog's safe and he performs when he has to perform.
It must have meant a lot as well to get this slot for Tab Touch in the Sandgroper, given he failed to secure a slot in the Phoenix. I'm sure that must have been a blow for you guys, but obviously it's been rectified with this slot he's been able to get heading towards the Sandgroper a bit later on this year.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Tab Touch picked us up early and it was great. We had not much negotiations. They wanted us, and we wanted to go with them, so it was pretty easy. And I suppose missing out in the Phoenix was pretty disappointing. Still thought he was the best dog, not in the race. So yeah, but you can't dwell on it too much, I suppose.
What does his preparation look like in the remainder of the lead up to that race?
So the plan is to come over on in a fortnight and have a trial on race night, and then we'll go for the Perth Cup heats and hopefully make the Perth Cup, and then we'll come back and give him a quick freshen up and the Sandgroper.
Have you and Jessica been over here and never raced over here before, Jason?
No, we've had a couple over there. We've had a couple with Linda, and we had one that was trained by Jeff. She went over there, Casual Lyrics. She went over and raced over there. She was in, I think she was in the All Stars, I'm pretty sure, or might have been one of the bitches races that's normally later in the year. But yeah, we know a lot of people in Perth, and Jess and I actually got married in Perth, so we went on holiday and got married in Perth, so we love Perth.
Well, there you go.
You want to renew? We might be able to sort you. Get you to renew your vows, mate. How's that sound?
No, it's all right. I've already.
Not with the weather we've had recently over here, Brad. That's for sure.
We're happy. We're happy.
What sort of a dog around the kennel? I mean, they're just fascinating animals, aren't they? They're just incredible. They know when it's race day.
Yeah, he does. When you get him out, he knows exactly. And even like last night, he's like on his back legs trying to get to the boxes. So he's pretty keen last night. He just loves racing. The dog just loves racing, and he can sort of handle anything. In a sense, with travel or bad boxes, he's done well. So he's a good dog.
Jason, congratulations once again. As for that announcement, has Tab Touch the slot holder for the second edition of the Sandgroper, and look forward to seeing you over here in the West very soon.
Well, good, guys. I'll see you over there. We'll have a beer. Beautiful.
Jason Sharp joining us there on the program this morning, and just one of those many slot races that continue to pop up left, right and centre. Brad, it's very exciting for all those that are big fans of racing like yourself and I.
Yeah, sensational, isn't it? In all codes, it's starting to really build, and I think you even got one at Sharon, one going around on the Knoll, haven't you?
Yes, I do. In fact, we are going down to Albany on the 10th of March for the Bluff Knoll, which is the race that'll stop the Great Southern, that is for sure. And very much looking forward to that. But no, I think they're great initiatives, and they generate a lot of interest, Brad, and I guess the product itself has been looking for something like this and this sort of an initiative and an innovation for quite some time, and we've seen the success that they've had over there in New South Wales with the Everest as well. So no, I think what Tab Touch and Rawa are doing with these 3 slot races over here in the West is fantastic.
Awesome.
Alrighty, we are going to be, I'm looking forward to these next couple of chats we're about to have, Bradley, regarding the racing over there in Sydney, Queensland and at Flemington there yesterday, but we do have to head to an ad break. We'll be catching up with Chris O'Nelson on the other side for a look at Randwick and Eagle Farm from yesterday.
Racing and sport from different angles. You are listening to The Aftermath on Tab Radio Racing and Sport.
Well, it was a massive day of racing there and plenty to take away at Randwick yesterday as we catch up with Chris Nelson on the program this morning. Hello, Chris O.
Good morning, Riley. Good morning, Brad. Great to chat to you guys.
Yeah, great to chat to you, Chris. Look, going into race 1 yesterday at Randwick, the second and, nearly equal second favourites for the Golden Slipper behind Stormboy. It's the one to beat, isn't it? But did we get any clearer yesterday? Small field, solid win by the winner?
Well, to be honest with you, Brad, I was a little bit disappointed. I expected Switzerland to win more impressively. I was very keen myself. I just thought with that run under the belt and the experience of the first win, I just expected a little bit more. But then listening to Chris Waller post-race, he said that the horse was nowhere near screwed down yet. They got, 4 or 5 weeks to go till the Golden Slipper. And J-Mac also said that sitting outside the leader wasn't planned, and that was another box tick. So maybe I'm underestimating the win, but they seem to suggest there's plenty of improvement to come. But I don't know. I think I just expected more. What did you guys think?
It was a tough win, Chris,
yep.
and I think the horse showed its versatility. But yeah, I tend to be in the camp that perhaps expected a little bit more. Perhaps we expect too much of these 2-year-olds at this time of year at times as well, a little bit, Chris, I reckon.
Yeah, you could be right there, Riley. I mean, I think we all just expected this horse to just move up outside Shangri-La Express and just basically show a turn of foot and race away and win by about 2 or 3 lengths. But look, that didn't happen. He got the money. He'll keep on improving. He'll probably be better over further, judged on both wins. So there you go. Shangri-La Express was quite okay. Did nothing wrong. Extreme Diva and Fly were quite sound in the race also. And Brad, you mentioned Storm Boy. I think Storm Boy and Straight Charge are the two at this stage for me.
Chris, how did the track overall play there at Randwick yesterday?
I thought it played quite well. I mean, we saw leaders win. We saw horses. We'll get to a Fangirl later in the day come from clear last. We saw King of Sparta come from off speed. I think it played completely fair. I think the soft 5 reading was spot on.
Well, let's look at the Expressway. I must admit I was fortunate to find it because I've had Buenos Noches banned for life ages ago. But King of Sparta was very good. Had never won a race on a Saturday in Sydney.
No, I didn't know that. Well, there you go. There's a box tick. But, gee, look, he had the perfect run, and we saw Malkovich go out, 4 lengths clear at the 600-metre mark and was still leading by that space into the straight. That started to lessen as they got to about the 200-metre mark, and then he was swamped late, as he often is. So I thought King of Sparta, who had the run of the race, basically 1 by 1 sitting off, finished too well. He's going really well. It came off that Gold Coast win at his last start. Cold Crusher chased Malkovich the whole way, and I thought did a really good job to hold on and run second, was beaten less than half a length. And the one you mentioned there, Brad, Buenos Noches, just got too far back. Was running on strongly at the end. The closing sectionals were solid. Did pull up 1/5 lame as well. I noticed in the stewards report. So plenty of improvement to come from Buenos Noches. King of Sparta now heads over your way, Riley, to the Quokka on the 20th of April.
He certainly does, and I think he's going to be very hard to beat if he gets here in the sort of the same vein of form that he was in there at Randwick yesterday. Did you expect Buenos Noches, Chris, to get as far back as he did get there yesterday in the run?
No, I didn't actually, and I don't think they wanted to get that far back in the run. I think it's just the way things panned out early on. And look, we knew Malkovich should lead, but probably not by that margin. So if Malkovich had led by a lesser margin, then Buenos Noches would have been closer. But I think you'll see this horse improve leaps and bounds fitness-wise at its next run too.
Race number 6 on the program, Chris. There was a bit of drama post-race with a protest in the Triscay Stakes over the 1,200 metres for the mares, but the winner was Samana for Jason Collett.
Yeah, and Samana won, but I think it's fair to say that Alentia was one of the best things beaten you've seen for some time. I mean, Samana sat probably about 6 lengths off the lead. Alentia sat 7 lengths off the lead. Samana was brought wide around the home turn by Jason Collett and was able to round them up an unobstructed run, whereas poor old Alentia, who was just trucking along on the fence, Tommy Berry, had to ride for luck. And that luck didn't come, and then tried to squeeze through underneath the leader at about the 200-metre mark and did bump the rail and was beaten 0.4 of a length on the line. Should have won, there's no doubt about that. You mentioned the protest or in the stewards room post-race. That was for an incident earlier in the race near the 1,000-metre mark. Tommy Berry protested against Samana, and there was a bit of interference there. The horse probably did lose, you'd have to say, nearly half a length, and the margin on the line was 0.4 of a length. So maybe there was some grounds for that to be upheld, but whichever way you look at this race, Alentia should have won, guys.
Race 7 was the Apollo Stakes, and nearly the winner of the day, really. I mean, I went looking for a bit of value myself, Chris, and I like Militarise as a horse, and I thought, maybe he pinches it at the 4 or 5 to 1, but Fangirl just left them standing.
I thought this was Winks in pink. It looked like the Winks sort of performance, guys, didn't it? I mean, back in the field, brought to the outside at the top of the straight, and just cruised on by. And J-Mac, really, I don't think she was ever out of maybe first gear, second gear, first gear, but she never got serious, or he never got serious on her. This was, and you said, the most impressive win of the day. Third last, 7 lengths off the leaders, and just rounded them up and raced away. Everything else had its chance. Militarise, the one you spoke about there, Brad, I thought was good for further, obviously. He couldn't match Fangirl when she didn't even let down, but when she went past in the straight, but then he was doing his best work again late. Think It Over was a good return. Buckaroo probably should have finished closer, held up at about the 200-metre mark and then got going again late. And Cascadian ran last, beaten 5.5 lengths, but was held up the entire straight. down on the fence there, and you suggest that Cascadian had something to offer. This will be, without doubt, a really good form race going forward.
It's been a terrific start to the autumn, hasn't it, Chris? We've seen two champions of the turf just come back, and it's business as usual almost. We talk about Fangirl there yesterday, and Mr. Brightside able to get the job done in Melbourne as well last week. It sort of sets up for perhaps, can we see these two horses do battle again over the coming months?
I'd love to see that. I mean, certainly, J-Mac said post-race yesterday it'll take a good one to beat Fangirl this time in. Well, Mr. Brightside is a good one. And, yeah, I hope that really does happen because that would be a terrific clash.
And the 3-year-old certainly on track there as well, Chris. It was an outstanding performance from Militarize, and there's some guineas ahead for him, you would think, this preparation as well.
Yeah, as I said, he just couldn't go with Fangirl at about the 300-metre mark when she went past. And I love the way that he sort of grinded late, and that just gives you every impression. And we know he's better suited out further anyway. So I thought his return was a good return. He's certainly worth following. There's not really... I think you could probably pick two horses out of the race, maybe three that you wouldn't be overly keen to follow, but the rest of them can all win.
Well, the Lightfingers, we spoke to you yesterday on my show, and you're a busy man yesterday, and we suggested there could be something special come out of this, and I think we've got a lot to like. I think you talk about that last race. I think the Lightfingers is a race to unearth some really nice girls going forward.
Yeah, there's some really good fillies in this race. And look, there's probably not a lot between most of them. Kamachi got the breaks yesterday, was able to weave through and was just shade too strong on the line for Learning to Fly, who was three back to the fence, got to the outside, ran on strongly. But, of course, we hadn't seen Learning to Fly for quite some time, so it's going to take a lot of benefit from that. So you follow both of those two. The one that I was keen on, Christilli, Brad, she ran a cracker of a race. She sat three wide, no cover the whole way. Gee, if she had got in, she might have been something to beat. So I'll be staying with her until she puts in a bad one. Hopefully she doesn't. And Tis Invincible just got too far back. The wide gate was the problem there. J-Mac had no option than to go back and did, and she made ground. She was only beaten 2.8, and Arctic Glamour was another one that ran on. So you're right. I think this will be a really good form race going forward. You could follow any of these. Even Steffi Magnetica, who ran fourth, was a good run also.
Chris O taking it across to Eagle Farm to take a look at a couple of races on that program there yesterday. Race number 4 on the program was a benchmark 78 for the fillies and mares, and it was a nice win by the winner, Blue Spinel.
Yeah, just a sort of average meeting at Eagle Farm, and I thought the track played really well for all the rain we had. But, yeah, you speak of Blue Spinel there, Rylie, and she's going really well. I thought she was a speed machine who didn't have a lot of ticker, but she's turned that around now. And she was able to run down her stablemate Black on Beauty. Now, the interesting part and the biggest plus about her win was they went out in 36.98 and came home in 34.03. So she's run a really quick sub-34 to round up Black on Beauty. And they're going to put her away for a little while and bring her back for a stakes race in the early part of the winter. So follow Blue Spinel.
We go to race 6, and look, there's a bit of a theme around the country, isn't there, Riley, with horses named after footballers of the past, Ralphy and all sorts of things. This one, he's a good man with a horse, Tony Gollan, isn't he? Mullane, he got the best out of this one.
When's yours coming, Brad?
Is there one called Hardy?
I know there was one sold online called Horowitz. It went for about $2,000 about a fortnight ago.
That's no surprise.
Yeah, well, that's because he didn't play AFL. That's why. He didn't play anything, so that was a cheap one. Mullane, we know Mullane's got ability. He showed that when he won on debut, but he's been right off the boil. Tony Gollan gelded him, or they gelded him, and I think that's made all the difference. He did say on radio on Friday that he's a completely different horse, and his mind is a lot more on the job now than it was prior. So I think we can follow Mullane going forward.
Okay.
Any other highlights, mate?
I can give you some horses to follow out of those meetings yesterday. These are the ones I'm sticking with. Coal Crusher and Alencia out of Randwick 5 and 6, and Christilli and Learning to Fly out of race 8. And the two I mentioned yesterday at Eagle Farm, Blue Spinel and Mullane. And just that first race at Eagle Farm yesterday, guys, Apophis won is quite promising. Hidden Wealth ran third. Look out for Hidden Wealth next time on a drier track.
10 races at the sunny coast today, Chris. Do we have a winner or two for our listeners?
We got a heavy 10 and 56 scratchings, Riley, but I'll give you these two. Race 2, number 6, Alea, a debutante that trialled really well, looked to have a lot more to offer. And race 4, number 1, a Big Chance. He doesn't win often, but this looks very suitable in a 5-horse field. We've got a 3-horse field there today with a $1.05 favourite. for the thrill seekers.
Race 2, number 6, Alea,
I'll
currently
stop
$2.65 with Tab Touch. And race 4, number 1 there, a big
Brad.
chance at $2.60.
Brad, do not put it in your multi, please.
Oh, well, mate, I just knock it up. I'm still bleeding from Jimmy Star. I can't wait to talk to Ralphie about that.
Between Brad and Marty, I wouldn't be giving out tips on this show whatsoever. Just would completely be absolutely no chance. Nah, Chris, all seriousness, thanks very much for your time this morning on the show, mate. We always really appreciate catching up.
Always great to catch up, guys, and have a great Sunday.
There we have it. Chris Nelson joining us on the program this morning. It was a massive day of racing there at Randwick yesterday, Brad, and it's just been, the past couple of weeks have been terrific scene setters for the autumn moving forward, which brings us to our next guest to go through the racing there. A massive day at Flemington yesterday. Racetrack, Ralphy joining us. Hello, Ralphy.
Good morning, boys. Gee, we had a little bit of everything at Flemington yesterday. Heard the tail end of what Brad said about Jimmy Star and the Kiwi Star Imperatrice returned big, but also we probably learned a little bit about barrier trials and signals versus noise and everything else. So I'll start wherever you guys want to, but it was fantastic racing.
Yeah, let's go through the program for number 1. Obviously, the Goodwood Trophy, and well, it was a very competitive race. What were your ratings in terms of time-wise? They seem to be. I liked Star Vega, but they just didn't seem to get along quick enough for him.
Yeah, actually, the speed wasn't too bad for a small field. And by the way, I've got Vince Cardi's daily sectionals through, which is good, so I can give some real good insights here. Damien Lane likes rolling along, but actually went a bit quicker than he did when he won in a big field. So which is just fact. It just rolled along at a good tempo, and El Soleado stalked it. I'm probably with you. I thought Star Vega would have been suited if it was a big field, but that's what kept me out. His Sandown winning was super. So I think he might have another win in him, but El Soleado, rock hard fit flying, as is Robbie Lang. He's just found an absolute vein of form, and that's a really good news story after the troubles that he had for quite a while there. So he's back and back big. His horses, he likes getting his horses fit and keeping them in because they bring in checks when they win races, Brad.
Ralphie, just before we move on to race number 2, a word on how the track played out there at Flemington yesterday.
No, I think exactly all you can ask for is exactly how you want it, which is as expected. So in a big field, you want to be able to sling out wide, and those horses got momentum about 6-10 off the fence. They were in the best part of the track, but as like a genius front running rider like Damien Lane showed with Grinzinger Bell going quickly later in the day, you could lead throughout. So I think that the track played absolutely perfectly. Race
number 2 was down the straight there, and Jamie Mott was able to drive out Big Watch to get the victory there for Mike Moroney.
Yeah, well, he's definitely, you can stamp him as a straight track specialist. There was a 3-year-old race during the winter that actually rated really well. I think he ran 50, and that's pretty much what he bought there yesterday. So this was just a benchmark 70. So he can be followed. Our Barboris, I heard Mick Price Jr. on RSN yesterday saying he's grand finals in 3 weeks. So he should improve again. I just don't think he'll be as good as I think Beyond Baker's horse is one off the top of my head for that big English prize money race will be the one to beat there. But he should run well in that. But again, this is just a lower grade ratings race.
Race 3, the Talented and Aardvark. Good run. Nice horse.
Yeah, good name, isn't it? I think this was a sound performance, but I think we can pretty confidently say that next week is the A graders with the Blue Diamond. Sometimes a good horse can emerge from this race, but I think these have got a fair bit of improvement to come.
Race number 4 on the program was the Royal Ascot Plate, and rumbled again, was able to get the bob there from Magnus Spin, who live, Ralphie looked like it had won. So there you go.
Absolutely right.
Get it wrong often.
No, and so did we see some pressure here? Well, straight away when they've run 135 of these horses, you think they're quick, and Vince's figures are through and 12.7 lengths above benchmark. So that's first 800 metres, just a 12 lengths faster than average. So unsurprisingly, if you're on Houdaires, he was gone at the 400. So was Green Belt. So where you wanted to be typically in that situation, 3 to 6 lengths from the lead. That's where Rumbled again was. Magnus Spin was probably in the right spot, as was Belle Savoie. So they've run really good time, but in this case, I'd be pretty careful of trusting this time because they were just completely legless late.
Ralphie, just before we leave that race, Circle of Fire, Import, a couple of the good pundits were all over it yesterday. What did you make of it?
Well, I think, again, you can only put a horse in a race and think that's the right thing to do. So they've probably kicked it off in a mile race, thinking, well, we'll let it work home. It was respected in the market, but wasn't smashed, which tells me improvement to come. Or he's ended up getting in, its first Australian start is in an insane speed race. We often see building sort of tempos in those Euro races. So I think a definite pass mark for sure.
Race number 5 was the Francis Tressity Stakes, and she's really become a very nice mare, hasn't the winner of this race, Ralphy Revolutionary Miss, driving up the inside to score for Mickey D?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was all about the price here, and you couldn't disrespect it. And it's had a busy prep, but the Snowdens are such fantastic trainers, and Mickey D was just going to put in the right spot. And while it was coming back from the Gold Coast, it stopped for a little barrier trial on the way, and the barrier trial was really good. So there was nothing to say that she was going to drop off, and she's just pretty much held her figure. The disappointment for the race was Wish Law Lass, and got to say in the figures, there's sort of nothing overly significant there. So, it was probably a bit plain. I did think she was overbet at the price, had her on top, but I just didn't want to be on that price. And the luckless runner there was Eternal Flame. Death by speed map here. I'm not blaming Ethan Brown, but he was following Wish Law Lass, and they haven't gone overly quick, and then Wish Law Lass hasn't really turned up, so there was just nowhere to get out. So I think Eternal Flame was the luckless runner. It'll probably be overbet next start, though, because we know how often they do when everyone sees it. But as you said, Rylie, Revolutionary Miss, just in the zone and racing well.
She's a quality mare. Sorry, Brad, just to butt in there. She's a quality mare, Wish Law Lass, Ralphie, but that's now her third failure at Flemington, that track specifically.
Yeah, look, it could be a factor. There's no doubt about that at all. But if you think of it, if you go through it, the other 2 failures were end of prep runs, and one of them was trying to tackle on the Pride of Jenny. So I think there's better horses than her that can't keep up with Pride of Jenny. So I look, put it this way. If she backs up at Flemington in that next start, and there's every chance she will, given there's a meeting in 2 weeks and in 3 weeks, I certainly won't let the Flemington factor put me off. I'll just more say that, she's been really strong second up at her last 2 preps, and that's probably what I'd prefer to look at.
Race number 6 on the program there, Ralphie, was the Tab Vanity, and an upset result. It was the theme of the day out there at Flemington there yesterday, with Grinzinger Bell able to get the job done for Damien Lane.
Yeah, absolutely. So she trialled really well. What do I have? I marked her at 20, so yeah, I couldn't have had her there. But what she did, so she's trialled well and showed her best at the end of her last prep. So this is a really great sign for Danny O'Brien that they've got a good filly in the zone. Maybe a little bit of El Patroness about her. Now, she went on to win an Oaks. I'm not saying she's going to win an AJC Oaks, but I am saying that she's learnt to use her speed and use it really well. So to return at her best is a great sign, given she didn't peak until her 6-run last prep, when just picked off in that Cox Plate Day race there by Skybird. So I think she's going to be in for a really good prep. They did fly along here, but as we know with Damien Lane, he just lets them run happily. And when they're in the groove, he doesn't go too slow at them, and that put everything else out in their feet. So I'd be really confident Molly Nickers is the one to back out of this next start. She just pretty much, I reckon, has matched her Caulfield win, and that was second up. And now Peter Moody and Catherine Coleman have got her spot on. So I'll be very keen to be with Molly Nickers, but don't underestimate Grinzinger Bell, because it was very fast speed, and she tapered late, as you'd expect. So she's got improvement to come too.
Race number 7 on the program was the CS Hayes Stakes over the 1,400 metres for the 3-year-old colts and geldings, and the futures market for the Australian guineas has certainly changed complexion a little bit after this win there yesterday of Riff Rocket, Ralphie.
Yeah, spot on. I just had a look at the tab touch market, and I mean, you do. There's sometimes an element of overreacting in racing, but in here we just know there's this race in 2 weeks, and both these horses are set for it to run big. So Riff Rocket, you mentioned the Flemington form before. Well, that's pretty real, isn't it, with Riff Rocket? I mean, he was super on Turnbull Stakes Day, won the Derby. The interesting comment I got post-race from Chris Waller's foreman was that they're not sure if he's a stayer, even though he won the Derby, and we know a lot of good horses win derbies on class rather than on staying capacity. So that's a big sign. They've got militarised for the Randwick Guinea, so every chance he's going to run well and entitled to his favouritism. I won't be surprised if King Colorado turns the tables, and you can pretty much put the pen through the rest of them in that race. So they're going to run big. They were good yesterday. They're going to be better again in a fortnight, and they've got grand final trainers as well. So they're going to run super races, whether V8 or... I'm not completely ruling out Southport Tycoon can knock them off. Let's see what happens when the barriers come out and everything else, but they're going to run huge no matter what.
Race number 8 was the feature, the Group 1 Black Caviar Lightning Stakes down the straight for the sprinters over the 1,000 metres, and the conjecture around Imperatrice Ralphy off the trial. Class came to the fore there yesterday.
Well, it did, and so I think we're going to learn a few things out of this, and one is the noise of a barrier trial, but keep an eye on those things, because sometimes they do trial poorly for a reason. So once you saw it got to, I think, about $1.95 on the Friday, and then by Saturday morning, $1.80. The big players who were smart, if there was anything wrong with the horse, the information would have got out. I discussed it with Vince Cardi on Friday, so there was nothing wrong with the horse. Now, what she's done in the race, they've smashed on the anchors here in the mid-race, so it's effectively been a 400 dash home, and that means disadvantage on paces. So what I'm saying is clearly the best two horses have run the 1-2 here, in Imperatrice and Private Eye. And I know Espiona was great. I think there's been an overreaction there with the Newmarket. I'd be very keen to be with Private Eye in the Newmarket. I'm not knocking Espiona, but we know Private Eye dynamic up the straight, and he's going to take a power of beating the Newmarket. And don't ride off Cylinder, the 3-year-old. That is his grand final. I'm very confident about that was just a sound run there. But as for Imperatrice, well, don't know where they go next start, but yeah, she's only going to go upwards too. So clearly the best two horses ran the 1-2, and the jamming of the speed in the mid-race compressed the field.
Perhaps a bigger talking point than the Group 1 Lightning Stakes there yesterday. Ralphy was race number 9 on the program. The Elms Handicap, we saw Jimmy Star get beaten by Markram there at $151, if you don't mind, and there has been plenty of commentary since yesterday around the ride from Craig Williams.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, so let's bring a few things apart. Firstly, Markram, that's his best ever Australian run, and clearly. So David King likes using the phrase in footy commentary, don't get beaten by what you know. So if you're out of the quaddie, including me, including many, well, you took the silly short odds. That's a different story, of course, a different discussion point. We got beaten by something we didn't know. How were we meant to know that Markram was going to turn up and run his best ever Australian run? As far as Jimmy Stars itself, I couldn't disagree more with Kieran Maher, as great a trainer as he is. The horse turned up flat. There's nothing wrong with Craig Williams' ride. If there was, Savannah Cloud would have dropped out. And I've seen the speed figures now as well. They didn't go overly fast. He just got the horse out, got it relaxed. If they want to ride it dead cold, don't put Craig Williams on. That's simple. Put on a stable jockey who'll do exactly what's wanted. Craig Williams rides to win every race he's on, and that's what he did yesterday. So can't knock the ride. Jimmy Star was flat. Don't be surprised if he rebounds big. If he's in the blamey in a fortnight's time or 3 weeks, I think he'll be smashing the field there. But Mackram's turned up and run well.
Yep, I think I'm in the same camp, Ralphie, as an owner. You'd always want your horse, especially at those sort of odds, to take bad luck out of the equation, go forward,
exactly.
Show the positivity, and I think that's what Craig Williams did there yesterday, and I'm in the same camp as you. I completely agree there regarding...
Well, look, I know we're pressed for time, but we just mentioned Imperatrice. What happened when Opie Bossum found a slow-tempo race on Cox Plate Day?
Yep.
All of a sudden he went forward and won the race, you do that on the best horse for sure.
Absolutely, that's a very good example to use there. And the final race on the program, Ralphie, before we get to the 7 o'clock news, was the win of Jenny Lala for Kieran Maher and Declan Bates, who rides these horses super.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, her first 600 was quicker than Jimmy Star. There you go. So hard pace set up by Poland, who's just a bit uncontrollable. I think he just goes flat out. So she's returned super. She's going to improve again, and she's run really well. Maybe he's our Bonneville add to a mile next start. Might be hard to beat, but certainly horses to follow. Private Eye, put a big circle around it. Very, very confident on it going forward. And Molly Nickers, I'd say they're the best two going forward. And, of course, Jimmy Star backing up. If it goes to the blamey, it'll be winning that.
Beautifully done, Ralphie. Thank you as always. And racetrackralphie.com.au for all of your work. We always appreciate catching up on the aftermath.
Good on you, boys, and Super Saturday Caulfield next week, so really good racing continues.
Racetrack Ralphie joining us there on the program. You haven't heard Brad for the past couple of minutes. We're just having a few little line issues there. We'll head to the 7 o'clock news, and hopefully that is rectified on the other side.
Racing and sport from different angles. You are listening to The Aftermath on Tab Radio Racing and Sport.
Yes, welcome back. Well, it hasn't exactly been smooth sailing this morning from a technical perspective, but we are out the other side. Fingers crossed until the end of the program this morning. Brad's back on the line. Bradley? Oh, maybe not, in fact. Brad, have we got you? No, that program might have just dropped out once again, so no, we're having some real issues here. Brad, hello, have we got you?
Yeah, I'm back.
Ah, there we go. Beautiful. We're back. Fingers crossed we can stay back.
Look,
as well.
I shouldn't have swore about Craig Williams.
That's true. That is very, very true. But no, we're back on the line, and no, it was good to chat with Ralphy about another massive day at Flemington there yesterday and the ride. And Ralphy's opinion is the same as we share the same one there, I think, Brad, in terms of the ride of Craig Williams there on Jimmy Star.
What did he say by chance?
Oh, yes. Obviously, with no program, he said that, he rode the horse like the best horse in the race, and the sectionals that came through from Vince Accardi said the same thing, and that the horse was just flat. The horse raced flat and was beaten by a better horse on the day, and he's a horse that's certainly capable of bouncing back in a big way next start. But that was exactly what Ralphie's opinion was, and that you can't really knock Craig Williams for that ride, because the example he used was Opie Boston on Imperatrice on Cox Plate Day, Brad, where we've never seen Imperatrice, or we haven't become accustomed to seeing Imperatrice leading races, and in that small field Opie Boston went straight to the front and rode her like the best horse in the race, and she was able to belt them. That was a good example used there, I thought. Oh, okay, so we're still having line problems here. We're going to have to see if we can get these rectified. We apologise for this. We are having some technical difficulties this morning. We're hoping to catch up with David Harrison in the next 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes as well, before we get to Courtney Walsh as well over these next 10 minutes. So I may be flying solo if we can't rectify these issues. So just while we try and fiddle with a few things here in the studio, we're going to head to another short break.
Racing and sport from different angles. You are listening to The Aftermath on Tab Radio Racing and Sport.
Okay, welcome back. We are having some real trouble this morning here in the studio, if you weren't already aware. We do have a couple off the text line as well, so you are able to text in and get involved in the conversation. We're hoping to have Brad back up on the line. Bradley, hello.
I got you, Rylie. Have you got me this time?
There we go. Fingers crossed this can stay up. No guarantees as to how long it'll go for, Brad, that's for sure. But good to have you back on the line.
Yeah, it's very straight. I sound like I'm in Barbados at my end because you get a little bit of feedback, but that's okay, mate. We will soldier on.
Live radio, hey?
Oh, yeah, it's fun. It's fun. That's what it's all about.
It is very fun. We do have a couple off the text line that we can discuss, Brad, and a lot of it is based around the footy chat and the season really starting to heat up with all these practice games, and we are getting into the official practice matches this week. And even this morning, I think Melbourne are playing Richmond, or that game has only just got underway, in fact, as well. But morning, Rylie, Brad and the team. Sorry to hear Marty's not well. Hope he's on the improve soon. Brad, the Eagles will be hoping that Clay Hall's injury is not serious. There's word that he'd be a possible choice to replace Andrew Gaff should he be struggling again this season. And the snippets I've seen of Clay, he has that bullishness about him, and he has that burst of speed from stoppages and can win the hard ball. He's been likened to Tom Green from GWS. Your thoughts and comments greatly appreciated. Not good to see him go down there with that injury there yesterday, Brad. That's for sure and certain.
Yeah, they're having a bit of a bad run with it, aren't they? And some are blaming the ground, some are blaming the training. Yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting one. But, Gaff, I understand, has been going okay, but he'll want to have a good start to the season because that's what you want. Because you want people pushing up to push those guys out of the side by the end of the season anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the conjecture, and having played a lot of football on the ground, Brad, over the last couple of seasons, is it's the one ground in the waffle that when you do play there and you do hit the deck and you are out there running around on it, you do feel just how hard it is and fast it is underfoot out there at Lathlane Park. And obviously that program has dropped out again. Brad, did you get any of that?
No, I just got your best impersonation of Marcel Marceau.
I was saying,
okay.
I was
saying the ground's a bit hard out at Mineral Park, Resources Park, or whatever. Yeah,
it is. No.
Well, look, no doubt. I think that's going to be an element to it, but I just think the speed and power training these days will often cause a lot of the soft tissue injuries. You can't worry about hip injuries, knocks, knees, ankles, etc. But the soft tissue injuries, yeah, it's got to be a combination of a couple of things, I would have thought.
Certainly wasn't a happy week at Hawthorn, that's for sure.
No, exactly. They were trying a few things as well because Jath was playing on a wing when he went down. Scrimshaw's been playing forward. He's normally a backman. So they had some trials and putting things in place. It was seemed to be going okay, but again, hit badly by injury. You don't need that when you're a team trying to get on the rise.
No, it's particularly your spine players as well, Brad. And I know that players like a blank might not be well sort of known or as well known as some others among AFL circles, but they're players that play a role for each team, and they're few and far between players that can play those roles.
Yeah, I know Marty's not feeling well today, but other things that were tried over the last week, Essendon, every time that they've had possible versus the probables, Jake String has been in the possibles, so they're making him earn his strides. In good shape, he looks in good nick. So clubs are trying things. There's no doubt about that, and that's the time of the year. And you just have to be a little bit wary. I'd call it dancing with your sister, because when you play intra-club, you're not quite up to the mark, as you would know, Rylie, as you do when you're playing a full-blown bona fide opposition.
Yep, no, I completely agree. That is.
So things work for you.
And the word out of the Fremantle camp, they all seem to be flying down there at Coburn, Brad. That's what we're hearing. What do we, I guess, expect to see from the Dockers heading into the start of the season?
Well, this is what we're talking about. I mean, Jackson, I think, kicked 4. I think Amiss kicked 4. Tracy kicked 3. 5 spent the majority of his time in the midfield. So it sounds good, but we've just got to see it work in practice, and that's what we need to work. At the moment we can't, so we've got to give them the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully they, again, like a lot of teams, if they are going to press forward this year, their chances of making the 8, they've got to get away to a good start in that first half a dozen games.
Is Luke Jackson better for being the best version of himself as a footballer, do you think, Brad, for having Sean Darcy alongside him in that side?
Yes and no. I think, look, I think he thrives on responsibility, to be honest, Luke. He's still only a young man, he's early 20s. So a big man too. They take a little while more to mature in their bodies and the like. He could be another Dean Cox. Not this year, but maybe in the next couple of years, he could certainly become that roving ruckman that they sorely look after, and a lot of teams would kill for in the. But at the moment, with the forward line the way it is, they probably need him down there a fair bit.
Clayton Oliver is named as a starter for that Melbourne Tigers practice match this morning. Brad, does that come as a surprise to you? Because it has come as I would say, a fair bit of a surprise to myself.
Is that in the main game or the second?
In the main game.
I think he might be in the seconds.
It says here. He's
named in the squad, but yeah.
Yep. So he has been named in the squad.
I think they're just ticking the boxes at the moment. Yeah, he's got a. Yeah, I think he'll be playing in a fair bit of the early game. So, look, it's good. He needs the parameters. It's like that to try and keep himself in the straight and narrow. But how long will it last?
Does he play in the first month of the season?
No, I can't see that. I can't see that happening. I think there's a big watch on that, and I think that at the moment he's got a fair bit of making up to do in a lot of areas, and I think that they won't want him to hit the park unless they're 100% right. He's in good nick and in good shape, in the good headspace. And that would be, if we are trying to forecast potentially how long that process would take, I'm thinking maybe around 6 and 7 would be the earliest we might see Clayton Oliver. And, things could certainly change. We could be very far off the mark, but for mine, that's probably the earliest that we are going to see him at AFL level this season. Well, it's a big year for Melbourne too, because they've got to, they've had a wasted couple of years, haven't they, after we thought a dynasty was talked about when they won over your way against the Dogs in that grand final. But from my point of view, sometimes what happens in these situations, Rylie, and you've got to try and hold your nerve. If they're not going well early in the season, panic hits in and they might do something stupid. And I think the key themes for the D's, they've obviously been plagued by the media in this off-season for all the wrong reasons. But you look at their injury list as well. We know Brown is already sidelined. You've got injuries to Harry Petty, Tom McDonald, Shane McAdams also battling some calf issues after joining the club. They're certainly sort of missing a fair bit of stock in that front half of the ground, particularly heading into the start of the season. Yeah, well, arguably they've got one of the best midfields in the competition when they're all up and running, but you've got to get them all in good shape. Max Gawn's not getting any younger. We know Petrarca's a superstar, but they need, we've got blokes on the wings who amass the ball, but they've got to get their forward line right as well. That's the key for them. They can get it in there You can't rely on Petrarca and Fritz to kick all the goals.
And you actually have to, I guess, the next part of that is kicking the goals. We look at Melbourne's last couple of finals, and they've now had 2 winless Septembers on the bounce. They've kicked 16 goals, 28 in their last 2 finals of last season. And just to use another example as well, a superstar that he is, Christian Petrarca, kicked 1931 for the season last year as well.
Yeah, well, he tends to tread water in the middle of the ground. They play forward, but that's why they love having Oliver in the team, because he does all the work down the back half of the ground and brings the ball through the midfield. He's not a great kick himself, so Petrarca's the better finisher, but you've got to get the ball in his hands. And a lot of the time he's kicking from long range, on the move, and that can sometimes lean towards errancy in front of goals, but they're not the only club. The Bulldogs are the same. They've got Norton, Jumariuk, Hagan, etc., Bonampelli. They've all got to increase their their conversion rates, because as we can see in this nature of this competition right now, Riley, unless you're really accurate, you can have those sliding door moments where you lose or win or lose games by less than a kick.
Exactly right, and I think Richmond, Brad, as well, are a team that I guess we're getting mixed messages, or they're quite a polarising team, I guess, in the media in regards to what's expected of them this season. Are you of the belief that perhaps they might be in a little bit of trouble?
I'm interested in the way he's going about it. I reckon Hardwick probably was a little bit comfortable where his players were at, what he knew what they had. Under Uze, they have gone very much more physical. So I'm expecting something out of Richmond early. I really am, and we'll have a good idea. That round 1 game is going to be an absolute belter for the obvious reasons. You know, it's the Damien Hardwick game, it's the Adam Uze game for their first one up against each other. Yep. Old coach, premiership coach against his premiership lineup. It should be a beauty, but I think I'm not writing Richmond off completely. Will they make the 8? I'm happy to bet against them.
Yeah, no, I would be in that same camp as well. And I think the fact that we are hearing Tom Lynch is likely not going to be fit for that opening game is a bit of a concern as well. Yeah,
he's been struggling all summer. I think, behind the anecdotal evidence behind it, people he talks to, friends, family, suggest that he's kicking into the breeze with this. It's a long, slow burn to get back up, and you just can't afford to have that. To have foot and lower leg problems, as a footballer is not ideal. I mean, if you've got a collarbone or a broken arm or something, you can still run and move, but if you're not on your feet, you're playing catch-up footy.
Yeah, exactly right. And those official practice matches get underway next week. Well, not next week, the following week, the 27th of February, the first official practice game there. Collingwood play Richmond, and those run through out that week as we lead into that opening round over in Sydney there before the season starts with round number 1. It's an interesting initiative they're going for this year, Brad, starting the year off in Sydney, but I can sort of see the sort of angle that they are taking with it.
Yeah, I think we're probably jumping at shadows. I think there's room for every code in this great country of ours, and NRL have never really threatened the box office for the AFL, bums on seats, TV ratings, etc. But they're looking for a push. They've announced today they're going to spend $1 billion, I reckon, north of Melbourne to try and get more encouragement for people to play footy at junior level. It's very big in Queensland. It's going well. It's improving in New South Wales. But I'd rather have football, Riley, albeit in the northern states, than no footy at all. And I think we enjoy the games that are played for 4 points. And let's face it, those 4 away games for those teams are like 8-pointers in round 0, as they call it. And then we'll have a bit of an idea where we all sit.
Now, Brad, Marty and I have been taking a look at these markets with Tab Touch for the Brownlow medal, the Premiership, and also the Coleman medal as we lead into round 1 this season to get an idea if there is any value there where it currently resides. Taking a look at this Brownlow market, Nick Dacos, obviously if he can repeat his heroics of last season, is going to be hard to beat. He's currently the favourite there at $5. You go longer, Marcus Bontempelli, Neil, Walsh at 11, Gordon 14, Petrarca at $15, and you get down to Tom Green at 19 with Oliver, Cripps and Sarong. Is there any value there on an early pick from you? Is Dacos a little bit under the odds, perhaps at $5?
Look, it's understandable. I mean, with 3 rounds to play, he was going to win it, wasn't he? You know?
Yeah.
So he was really unlucky in that regard. So, yeah, the umpires tend to gravitate towards those same
players.
I mean, you could probably look at it. There's probably no more than about 10 realistic chances, given the way that they vote these days. And some of the guys actually get overs, and I don't say that disrespectfully. Somebody like Lockie Neal gets overs. When he plays a good game, he might get a 3. You know what I mean?
We saw that. We saw that last year.
Yeah, it happens. And because there's just this lack of depth and vision from, to search around the ground. The guys who kick 6 and 7 goals at centre half forward, don't normally get the 3s. They might get 1 or a 2. So, but as I say, so from that point of view, of course, Bontempelli, Petrarca, Goulden would be one to watch again after a stellar 2023. They'll amass votes.
I like Sam Walsh, a bit of value there. I think if Carlton can get a full season out of him, then he's going to be right at the pointy end of that voting come the end of the season. And perhaps he does have those other mids around him potentially taking votes, Brad. But I think if we can get a full season out of him this year, then he's going to be right up there in that top 3.
My word, of course, Carlton had a very slow start here. I mean, what a turnaround. Halfway through last year, Carlton members wanted to burn their memberships in the microwave, get rid of Michael Voss, and now they've extended Brian Cook and Michael Voss, and the president's trying to, he might have a harder job, but he's trying to get extended. So they've come a long way in a short period of time. So a bit of pressure on them, but Wiedering's a worry for me. Yeah,
he has to be. He's the general down. I would say he's in their 3 most important players to their side. Wiedering, that's a massive,
without a doubt.
Yeah, without a doubt, and that resurgence you talk of, Brad. The executives, they stuck fat despite the noise. I think that was hugely important to the story that they were able to carve out in the second half of last year. And just looking at some of the stats here, I've just pulled them up in front of me, Brad. I think this is a key reason as to why they were able to turn that season around. There, scores per inside 50 percentage up until round 13, they were 17th in the competition. Goals per inside 50 percentage, they were 18th. So they were ranked last. And then you go from rounds 14 up until the end of finals. Scores per inside 50 percentage, they were second, and goals per inside 50 first in the competition. So there you go.
Well, it was no surprise because that was well documented. We spoke about that, didn't we? With you got, particularly big Harry Mackay. Oh, he was just frightful, in front of the big sticks. You didn't know he was going to kick a drop punt or kick it around the corner. To a lesser degree, Charlie Curnow was another one that was sort of to a lesser degree inaccurate, but they just need to get guys to pull the trigger on the run inside 50 from the right angles, and they weren't doing that, but they did that in the second half of the year. Momentum's a wonderful thing, and ball movement from back to forward is very, very important, and particularly get it through the corridor like they started to do that, which opened up their options forward to the centre. Therefore, they were able to score better.
How are they going to deal with that certainly that added expectation this year, do you think, Brad?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. Everybody's talking it up at this stage of the year, aren't they? So you're very hopeful that they can get it right. But we know that I've seen it littered, and you have too, Riley, I'm sure, even in any grade, where you think, we've got this right now, and they go into the next season, all of a sudden they flop.
Yep.
So, there's just as much pressure on Carlton as anybody going into season 2024.
I think we can welcome in our next guest here on the Aftermath in this second hour, Brad. Courtney Walsh is dialed in. Courtney, do we have you? Very good morning.
Yeah, good morning, gents. I'm hoping you're both well. Plenty of footy news around, plenty of cricket news, and even a little bit of tennis news overnight that has a historical significance.
Well, Courtney, I suggest you do a lot of the talking because I feel as I'm in the Caribbean at the moment with the feedback I'm getting. So where would you like to start?
Well, let's just quickly touch on the tennis before we move on to onto other aspects. But Alex de Minaur, the top-ranked Aussies through to the final in Rotterdam with another really convincing win overnight over Grigor Dimitrov, and he plays the Australian Open champion Yannick Sinner in the final. Now, he's had big troubles against Sinner in the past, but it's just another sign of how well he's playing, and that those performances through Australia where he went 3-1 against top 10 players and was edged by Andrei Rublev in that really strong fourth round match. He's continued on very, very stylishly. Sinner's obviously another big challenge, but the significant part about that win overnight is that as a result of beating Dimitrov, who has a beautiful one-handed backhand, there will be no one-handed backhand in the men's top play with a one-handed backhand in the men's top 10 for the first time since the computer rankings began in 1973. So the one-hander, it's interesting because there's been some magnificent one-handers through the years, but the double-handed has really taken over, and not to have not one man with a one-handed backhand in the top 10 is quite a symbolic moment, I think, for tennis.
Just trying to get that market up for that match this afternoon, Bradley, as well.
Yeah.
No, I'm struggling.
You would have Sinner probably is a very, very, very strong favourite, A, from what we've seen in his efforts, obviously in Melbourne through the summer, but B, their head-to-head, the last time they played was the Davis Cup final in November in Spain, and Sinner was a comprehensive winner over Alex. He beat him pretty convincingly in Canada as well in a final of the Canadian Open last August. But I think Alex is playing really, really good tennis. So it's, at some stage, it would be another step in his career if he was able to take down the Italian, and he has been taking steps forward. The Italian would be the next challenge for him, I think.
Is that just perhaps that lack of power in comparison to some of these players, Courtney, what holds him back?
Yeah, and it's probably, how do I put it? It's only a slight difference in power. Alex strikes the ball really well, and he's built his speed. The increase in power and his speed over the years has been substantial. But Sinner is, you're talking about someone like Sinner who is just clubs the ball. The sound of the ball off his racket is significant. Yeah, Alex is not a weak player. Like he certainly hits it exceptionally hard himself. His footwork's really, really strong, but just probably slightly outmatched against Sinner in the past. But there's always a first. I think I was listening to the commentary about what was it? Flemington yesterday led into the race where the unbeaten, was it Jimmy Starr? Was it that got beaten? Brad?
Yeah, it was.
And Ben Hayes was saying, well, yes, and they were saying, well, they're always they're one race closer to their first defeat, aren't they? So, Dimonow's one match closer to knocking him off for the first time. So we'll see how that one goes.
Courtney, it's been a massive week in women's cricket specifically, and what a week has it been for Annabelle Sutherland? To make a 210 and then to take 5 wickets in a match is fairly extraordinary, isn't it? The Australians, after a really tight T20 and ODI series against South Africa, where South Africa really pushed the world champions in both formats right to the brink. Australia was dominant in that test series, in a test match in Perth. Probably underlines that the difference in experience in the longer format between the two nations. But Sutherland was absolutely magnificent. I think her brother took 5 on the same day for Victoria as she made 210. So really, clearly a player with a very, very bright future for Australia. I'm not sure if you saw the footage there, Courtney, of her father James when she was able to bring up that double ton, but he looked completely thrilled. It would be fair to say that it was a pretty strong weekend for the family, and with her deeds there and her brother playing for Australia recently in the T20s against the West Indies, it's been a big month for the family, the Sutherland clan. So, not surprisingly, absolutely delighted. I think it just goes to show the golf in terms of the longer format. Now, Alyssa Healy is again called for more tests, the Australian captain, and would love to play more test matches. And you would hope that that's the case. There are probably economic issues in terms of drawing big enough crowds, so forth. But hopefully, the more that those longer form matches are played, the more you'll see bigger crowds. So it was scorching conditions in Perth as well. It would have been, had it gone on to today, it might have been even hotter, wouldn't it? With the 43, I think. 43 predicted over there. It would have been a pretty brutal day in the outfield today if you were batting and bowling. Yeah, exactly right. And were there any key takeaways, Courtney, from that T20 series that has just culminated between the Australian men's team and the West Indies? Look, it'll be interesting. I think what we looking forward. I think it was such a convincing display in terms of both the one days and the T20s that really a disappointing end for the West Indies after that
bright moment at the Gabba when they won that second test of the summer. Shamar Joseph, clearly the world beater there, but I thought Australia was comprehensive from then on. The challenge will be the opening position, and I think, again, we'll learn more in the next 3 matches against New Zealand, which the first of that series begins on Wednesday over there, leading into a 2-test match series. Who the opener will be interesting as we try and drill down to our final, I suppose, squad leading into the World T20, the T20 World Cup in the West Indies and the US in June. Is it Travis Head and David Warner that take control? Does Steve Smith hold his spot in the team? I think it's timing is everything, and for Marcus Stoinis and Aaron Hardy, the fortunes for both have changed there. Stoinis misses this T20 series just as he did against the West Indies due to injury. That gives Aaron Hardy the chance to come into that squad and really stake a claim. I thought he was really impressive when he played through the last few weeks against the West Indies, and if he can produce that form against New Zealand in the T20s, you think he just about cements himself a spot in the World Cup squad. So it'd be that's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, the top of the order is interesting for mine. Who plays where, and whether there is a spot for Steve Smith in the T20 team going towards the World Cup. He's batted well, but does the strike rate hold up in the biggest matches now? Well, it'll be interesting to see.
If you're the chief of selectors, Courtney, does he play?
Well, I think, I think he goes, but whether he plays is another matter. I think you need to have him in the squad and see how those pitches are playing over there come June, because he could be a very, very handy player to tick the ball, just to tick the run rate along. He and Labuschagne similarly were not necessarily considered certainties for that one-day international squad that went to India, and yet they were both played their roles pretty well through that World Cup. So I would have him. I would think he would go in. Some interesting, Shield news around, I suppose, with a couple of players having their last hit-outs before that 2-match series against New Zealand. I think it's the first time since 2015 we've been across. Will Pukovski, perhaps one to keep an eye on for the future. 69 not out for Victoria, having had so many troubles since, making his debut for Australia as a 20-year-old all those years ago. He spoke about the mental health issues as opposed to the concussions, probably more the mental health issues that he struggled with, but it's nice to see him back making runs. Alex Carey made a 90 not out in a return to form with the bat. Michael Neser, who's in that test squad, took 3 for 51 against South Australia yesterday and 5 for the match. Cameron Green misses out with both the bat and the ball, which is probably not ideal leading into that that 2-test series, given he was held out of the T20s to see if he could make some runs and find some form with the red ball. But look, he'll obviously be part of that team. You would think, based on what we saw through the summer. But WA's in a fair bit of trouble in that match against Tasmania. Trailing by a significant portion. Tasmania, trailing by a decent amount anyway. 183 and 2 for 174. WA with Jaden Goodwin making 85 made 271, so had the lead in first innings, but Tasmania's sort of settled, and Tassie's got a bit to play for. In fact, both sides have got a bit to play for, given Tasmania leads the Shield table on 36 points. Victoria in a very, very strong position against New South Wales at 34 points, and WA really playing to try and stay within reach of those two top-ranked sides with a couple of matches to go in the Shield season are on 29 points. So, WA need a big day for WA in Hobart today as to whether or not they can make a move on the table.
Just for confirmation, Courtney, were a lot of those concussions suffered from Will Pukovski early in his career, were they stemming back from his days when he was playing football? Is that correct?
It's a good question. Certainly the most recent ones have been through cricket, because there's been quite a lot of time since he played footy. But yeah, there were some concerns with football as well. But the most recent ones have been cricket. But even a couple of head knocks this year that he's had. he was pretty adamant that it wasn't the concussion in the most recent one. It was more that, he was able to play on, and then they took the necessary precautions. So, look, it is hope that he's over that, because he was such a talent and shaped as a generational talent, clearly, for Australia when he was batting and in that Test squad, 7 years or six or so years ago. So, 69 not out today. He's shown flat glimpses through the summer of the Bukowski of old. It'd be nice to see him standing up, because, look, if he stands up, he's very much a contender to play for Australia in years to come. Just in terms of those Australians that are batting, Labuschagne and Renshaw get a chance to have hit out today for Queensland as well. So leading into that, so plenty of news around. And the other blast from the past, Nick Maddinson, who made a second century in a row for Victoria since returning from a serious knee injury. He's now averaging 52 from his last 37 Shield innings dating back to 2018, and he's an Australian representative. So there's lots of depth around in the Shield ranks in terms of Australian players.
It certainly is a blast from the past there with Nick Maddinson. That's a name we probably haven't seen thrown around in that, I guess, in contention for that Test squad in quite some time, Courtney. That is for sure and certain. That two-match Test series scheduled to get underway on the 29th of February there, which is not this Thursday coming, but the Thursday after there. That was when that first Test will get underway. And I guess one of the key takeaways from that New Zealand series with South Africa, which has obviously been quite controversial, the situation surrounding that Test series, but Kyle Jamieson and that injury and how long he's going to be spending on the sidelines as one of their key players as well.
Yeah, clearly that's not ideal. They have just named their squad for that Australian team yesterday, for the Australian tests yesterday, and Jamison's obviously an issue. Trent Bolt, who has had a long career but been more recently, I suppose, spent most of his time playing short form cricket. He misses out due to a lack of basically red ball form dating back to Lords in 2022. Interesting one for mine in that is that Daryl Mitchell, who's a very, very, very talented player. I think he averages about 53 during his Test career, and we've seen him do some great things in short form cricket as well. He returns after a long absence with a foot injury. So, if he's in form, he certainly adds to their batting depth.
Certainly does.
Yeah, so he's back in that team. Interesting one, Tim Southey and Kane Williamson, the captain and his predecessor. They'll play their 100th Tests together for New Zealand during that series, the second Test of that series against Australia. And that makes Southey one of only 4 players to play 100 matches in all three, 100 internationals in all 3 formats, alongside Ross Taylor, the former Kiwi, Virat Kohli and David Warner, but the only bowler to manage that feat in all 3 forms if he gets there for that second Test. So quite a distinguished career, and it shows that they've got some experience in New Zealanders. It's been a long time since they've managed to win a Test at home against Australia. Australia doesn't go over there as often as what we probably should have. COVID cruelled the last chance we had to tour, but it'll be interesting to see how we fare, because there's some questions for Australia after that second Test loss against the West Indies at the Gabba, and clearly New Zealand, well, I don't think we can read much out of that effort against South Africa, given we know they were a C-grade sort of squad that was sent across.
Well, yeah, I guess the West Indies certainly were able to show that we are by no means unbeatable, and it'll be interesting to see if New Zealand can take that confidence stemming from seeing us in that position and whether or not they can actually win this series, because I think it's going to be very even at the end of once it gets down to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they look to be even against Pakistan. We were probably got lucky on a couple of occasions there with some drop catches, which could have put Australia under significant pressure through that period. So, perhaps there's some cracks there or some flaws that have been papered over by some outstanding efforts from our bowling attack. That might be, the New Zealanders may have spotted. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And just in the Test that's underway at the moment, India versus England, the one that a lot of people have been keeping an eye on. The Indians having squared the series a week and a bit ago, now in a dominant position in the third Test, leading by 322 runs. 8 wickets in hand in their second innings. Basically Yadav and then Mohammad Siraj really did the damage. overnight or late yesterday, taking the Indians. England had started well. Duckett had batted really well to make another century, but then India, basically took the last 8 wickets for 96 runs, and that's pretty much changed the test. It allowed the younger Indian, I suppose, top order to come in and really set about putting that test beyond England's reach, and they've done that so far. So it'll be a big challenge to see if Bazball can bounce back, both in this test, but more importantly in the last two tests of that series, because having lost that first one, India have tightened the screws a bit, and it could well be a dominant series victory if they continue on the path they're going along.
Courtney, always a pleasure to chat. Cricket, tennis, footy and all of the above on the Sunday Aftermath. You enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll speak again very soon.
Absolute pleasure, gents. Have a great day.
Courtney Walsh joining us there on the Sunday Aftermath. We'll be catching up with David Harrison on the other side of this break after the win and the remarkable campaign that has been for Bondi Bubbles.
Racing and sport from different angles. You are listening to The Aftermath on Tab Radio Racing and Sport.
Well, with the long-term phone line issues, we have had to Brad over there in Melbourne this morning. I've had some help step in the chair nice and early. Lockie Taylor, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Riley.
How are you?
I'm good.
Beautiful.
Better than you anyway.
Yes, no, it certainly hasn't been smooth sailing here in the studio this morning, but we are pressing on to our next guest. We'll welcome in David Harrison this morning. Harrow, very good morning to you.
Morning, Riley. Lockie, how you going?
Very well, Harrow. Congratulations again on yesterday's win. Bondi Bubbles. Can you take us back to the beginning of this campaign and explain why you took this horse down to Esperance? Clearly he had ability in your eyes, but he had a few little, chinks to iron out.
Yeah, he didn't really know how to get to the line. He didn't know how to pass horses in Australia. He was just a bit of a one-batter. So they just run the races differently down in the country than what they do in the city. So in the metropolitan area, they sort of have the last 600s the fastest 600, whereas in the outer country places, the fastest 600 is the first 600. So when they're stopping, sometimes the horses that just go to one pace can pass the other ones as they're pulling up.
Harry, you speak about this.
And then they learn how to pass horses. Huh?
Is that something that was stemming back from seeing this horse in work at your stable?
No, not really. No, just the way he was racing. He couldn't let down in the straight. He didn't know what to do. So I just like that. I thought, am I going to teach this horse to let down in the race, or maybe we just got one pace that isn't that much good. So we wanted to find out by trying to teach him to pass horses in the straight. You know?
At what point, at what win down there at Esperance, did you think you had a serious horse on your hands?
Well, it's obviously the first couple of years were pretty easy when they go to the other country, but after that he sort of got better and he learned how to kick, and he wasn't just going to one pace; he was actually trying to pass the other horses. So about his fourth win or something, I thought, geez, he's really turned the corner, this horse, and he's probably worth a crack at the metropolitan area.
Certainly is, and is that the plan with him moving forward now, Harrow? You are going to keep him in town and race him on Saturdays here?
Yeah, for sure, but he's had a spell now. Poor little fellow, he's had about 10 or 12 runs, or 10 runs or something, this preparation, so I've been a bit hard on him, and a bit of an afterthought that the Magic Millions, but yeah, he definitely earned his spell, and we'll give him a good break.
Harrow, how about the ride of Bondi Bubbles there yesterday from your old mate Paul Harvey? He turned back the clock there yesterday. What were your discussions like with Paul pre-race?
They said do your best, try and get a bit of cover. Hopefully, if 3 deep cover's good, but if you get one off the fence, he's got a good chance, I think. So it worked out perfectly. He got him one off the old master. So Paul of old it was, yeah.
When he did lob that position, did your confidence only grow? At what stage did you feel like you were training the winner?
As soon as you lobbed there, about fourth or fifth one off, I thought we were in with the big show here. Because I knew he wasn't going to do any work, and his confidence levels were sky high, and the horse was pretty fit, so I knew it'll take a pretty good one to beat him, yeah. Now,
another person you work very closely with is Tony Triscari. We saw him salute in the last with Premium Girl. How were celebrations between the pair of you last night?
Well, you can probably tell I got a bit of a VB voice box, so I've had a couple. Yeah, we had a fair few last night, so it was good. Great for Tony's horse to win. It's a bit unlucky with the other horse too, so Premium Choice. So he's nearly got the double up. So would have been a great day if they won under one as well.
Harry, the stable's tracking along quite nicely at the moment. Do we have any horses potentially like a blazing away heading towards those country cups?
It would be nice if he could. He won the cup last year, the Bunbury Cup, and I think his won the last start showed that he's on track again. So, yeah, we'll sort of be nice if he can get there. We haven't got a lot in work that are betting for the bigger races. Foreman in Rose, he's got Gemma's son. He'll head towards the Bluff Knoll, so he's in with a. I think it's a nice race for him. Blazing way for the Bunbury Cup, hopefully, and I might take Rationale. She was a bit stiff yesterday. She was for the Eastman's Cup, so. I think it's a nice race for her.
Harry, what did you make of the run of what you got yesterday in the 2-year-old classic?
Oh, she hung like her grandmother's and never usually does that, so I reckon she probably had enough, or she may even be a bit shin sore because she doesn't usually hang. So it was definitely not the true what you got yesterday, and we'll give her a bit of a spell. Check her out. Hopefully she's just shin sore and nothing is other serious, and we'll check her out. Give her a spell and she'll come back a nice horse.
How are the preparations heading into next week's Magic Millions sales?
I haven't had a look. Haven't been able to get around a lot of the studs, so I'm going to have to do most of the work at the on the complex because it's been that hot and everything, and I've had other things to do. So it's going to be full on next week. I don't think I'm going to be a big buyer, but I'll hope I can get a couple anyway.
Certainly will be. Harrow, congratulations once again on the win of Bondi Bubbles there in the Magic Millions 3-year-old trophy, and I'm sure we'll be speaking with you again very soon.
Good evening. Thanks, boys.
David Harrison joining us there on the program this morning after a very impressive win from Bondi Bubbles, who has just been a remarkable horse for the camp this preparation, hasn't he, Lockie?
Certainly has. You don't see many stories like that, a horse making it 6 in a line of Esperance and then a big late summer, early autumn feature, the 3-year-old Magic Millions trophy, which I thought was a really good field assembled there yesterday, and gets the job done to make it 7 in the line. It's
another big day for this man at Pinjarra yesterday as well, as we welcome Neville Parnham to the show. Hello, Neville. How are you?
Hey, good morning, boys. How you doing?
Very well, Neville. To kick things off, Vampy at play. She returned to form. Hadn't been in the winner's circle for quite some time, but courtesy of a really strong tempo, she found the line really, really well.
Yeah, Lockie, she's always shown quite a bit of promise. Had a couple of bone chips removed out of her knee last year, which interrupted her or caused her to have another lengthy spell. So there was quite a while between runs, but she's had a few little sort of niggling issues, but we've been able to sort of iron a few of them out, and she presented there yesterday in a good state and delivered. She was really good.
What did Steve have to say about the win there yesterday? To the eye, it really looked like she exploded up alongside that rail.
Yeah, look, he was sort of happy with the position he was going to lob into, and then there was a bit of pressure from the outside, and he decided to sort of come out of that position and finished up sort of closer to the fence, which we were trying to avoid, but there was just that little bit of pressure on the outside all the time, and rather than sort of fight him, he just decided to, give her an easier trail in the race. So it was a little bit messy in that area, but it probably turned out to be not all that bad because she got a nice clear run coming into it, switched back to the inside. And she accelerated really well, which the only thing I've sort of noticed with her is that she has got a really good turn of foot, but it seems to be not a long turn of foot. So she evens out and sort of just cruised to the line yesterday, but being held up a that little bit, getting into the straight and having a short kick was enough to have a good acceleration to sort of get to the front, and then she held him on the line.
It's always interesting how it can work, Neville, listening to Stevie speak about Vampy at play on the Hour of Power this week and talking about how it was of his opinion that perhaps she doesn't appreciate racing on the inside of horses and the manner in which she was able to win that race yesterday. It's funny how it all can work.
There was a bit of room there, so I think probably what he's referring to is taking narrow gaps and things like that. And I agree, she does probably appreciate sort of a bit more room, but she was afforded that room up on the inside yesterday, and that was was a good turn of acceleration, and of a horse that you would think there's more wins in her, and as I said, we've always sort of had a bit of an opinion of her, and hopefully she can remain sound and sort of move forward, and hopefully if more wins left, because I dare say she'll be off to stud this year, later in the year, so it'd be nice to build up a bit better resume than what she's currently got. But, she's got promising ability, yeah.
Neville, you've clearly worked out a strong formula with Multinational. First up last year on this day, able to get the job done, and once again there yesterday with a very similar setup.
Yes, look, it was a bit of a target race, to be honest. He came back into work, and I was sort of hoping to have him ready a little bit earlier, but it's for no real reason. We sort of got him in a little bit later, and I decided that this probably is the best option for him, taking him back to Pinjarra. It doesn't seem to get around the corners at Ascot as well as what he does at Belmont and Pinjarra, obviously. Pinjarra being a similar kind of course to Belmont, a bit more of a sweeping bend. And he gets around a bit better, and this was a bit of a target race for him, and where we go from here, I guess, I'm not sure, but maybe even a Bunbury Stakes or something like that, but we'll just let the dust settle now that he's got the money first up, and try and path the course into winter to when we return to Belmont, I guess, but not to say that he wouldn't have a couple of goes at Ascot, but we just got to try and find the races for him that suit, and he's certainly he's a nice horse in the he's probably a bit short of a better level, but on the right day, he's certainly going to be pretty competitive in them, and he's got a lot of toughness about him. I think it was pretty similar last year when I thought Weapon Son got past him or certainly levelled up to him, similar to what it did yesterday, and that was 12 months ago, and it was a similar finish. He fought back and won the race. So he really got a lot of grit in him, and sort of puts his head down and gets into it. And I actually thought he got beat, but he just got his head down at the right time, and the other one was coming up. So we'll take it anyway. It was pretty good.
Neville, we have to get to the 8 o'clock news. We'd love to keep chatting, but congratulations once again on the wins out there at Pinjarra yesterday, and we'll speak again very soon.
All good. Cheers, boys.
Neville Parnham joining us there on the program. We'll head to the 8 o'clock news, and we'll be back with Racing Rewind on the other side.